Okay, you made it through a round or two of interviews, and now they have emailed you with the next step, a project. Now, this could be a presentation, a case study, some sort of like branding assignment or writing assignment. But how do you create it without losing sleep, with still having possibly a full-time job or, the rest of your life? How do you add this thing into your day, do a good job, and yet not let it overtake your life, consume you? Well, today I am giving you the tips you need to do awesome at interview projects. Okay, so if we haven't met, my name is Cassandra and I help motivated professionals build their careers through practical tips to gain career confidence. And today we got to talk about those interview projects. Now, I have done another video on this because interview projects are getting more and more and more popular, and I will be very honest, there has been a lot of abuse around them. You probably should be prepared to do a project, but that doesn't mean you should do absolutely anything under the sun they tell you to do. We are going to talk about some of that here, but I also discussed that a lot in the other video. So I will put a card to it here, but I will also link it in the description box below. These two videos are really going to complement each other. So when you're done with this one, I would go watch that one. So like I said, there has been a bit of abuse around this issue, or just, I don't think it's purposeful from companies. I think sometimes they're just not thinking through what they're asking, but there's an overreaching on how much they expect you to get done in a certain amount of time, or asking for new creative ideas. And you're sitting there going, but how do I know you're not going to just steal my work, right? So first tip for you is have a conversation. If it is something where you're like, ooh, this seems like a lot in the time frame given, and maybe they didn't give you a time frame on the email, or you are reading over it and you're going, gosh, I'm going to have to create brand concepts for a product that hasn't launched yet. This feels uncomfortable. Have a conversation. Don't be afraid to come back and ask, what's the time frame on this? Or, this looks like you're asking for something about a current project. How are you protecting my work? Or could I work on something from the past instead? You can have that conversation. Be polite about it. Be kind. Don't act like they are out to get you. Just be like, hey, I'm just curious about this. Hey, could we talk about this? And hopefully that will go well for you and give you more direction of next steps. One thing a lot of companies do that is a really good thing, like let's talk about the positives for a second, is a lot of companies, when they want you to do something creative, will give you an old product, an old campaign, etc. I know advertising agencies will send out projects and say, we want you to come up with something for this product. And they'll say, but don't worry, this campaign is gone. This is from 5 years ago. We will not be using this work. But if you don't hear that, don't be afraid to ask. Okay, next tip sounds super obvious, but people don't do it. Follow the directions. You need to make sure you have read over the directions and you follow them to a T. What are they asking for? What do they want you to accomplish? What kills me is I sit in presentation after presentation as part of the interview process, and it says 5 to 7 minutes or 10 minutes. And then the person will go 15 minutes and somebody finally has to awkwardly cut them off. Also, we're going to talk timing more in a different tip, but sometimes they will give you a time frame and say, this project should take 3 hours. Only use 3 hours. They want to see what you can do in 3 hours time. Don't take 10 hours on it because you want it perfect to really showcase what you can do. And then it looks like that's what you can do in 3 hours. Just follow the directions. And if there's something that isn't clear, don't be afraid to email or ask, hey, I just have a couple of clarifying questions. I have fully done that. I had to do a presentation where I had to come back and go, hey, what you're asking for could be interpreted 2 ways. Did you all mean it like this or like this? Because again, sometimes they just didn't think it through. They knew in their heads what they wanted and went, oh yeah, well, make them do a presentation on blah, 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 blah. And you're like, but that could mean this or this. And so sometimes you just have to go back and ask. Then, and this one is real important, try to think through the point of the assignment. I'm going to stay on the presentation bandwagon for a second. Sometimes when you're given presentation as your next step. It's more to see how you present, how you public speak than the content of the presentation. And yet I have been in so many presentations where people spent all this time throwing absolutely everything they knew about a subject onto this PowerPoint and didn't practice it all, and then just stood there and told us the things like this with slides with 50 points on a slide. And it was like, that's not how we present. So try to think through, what are they getting at with this project, right? Do they want to see my creativity? Do they want to see my thought process? Do they want to see my skills in a certain area? Be thinking that through. Like for the presentation example, if they're asking for you to give a presentation about you, like, give us 5 minutes on who you are, they care more about your presentation public speaking skills than that content. Like, sure, it's nice to get to know you, but that's not what you're getting hired off of in that project. And so be keeping that in mind. Okay, let's talk about timing again. You need to value your time and manage your time accordingly. Nobody is expecting you to drop everything in your life to focus on this presentation or on this project, this case study, whatever. And if they are, then that should be a red flag. Or you go back and have that conversation, and if they're like, no, this is what it is, if you want the job, you should be willing to do all this, that is a red flag. And maybe we move on. But if it's a company that's really thinking through, then you should know they're not expecting perfection. They are not expecting you to write a white paper. It's to get an idea of something. That's why we do what's the point of the assignment? They're trying to get a feel for some part of you working in the position. So value your time. If you cannot do something in a certain amount of time, do not be afraid again to let them know, hey, I have these other things going on at my job. I have this going on with family. I'm very excited for this role. I'm happy to work on this project, but I won't be able to complete it until this day instead. Would that be okay? Like, don't be afraid to value your time and to have that conversation. Next is literally the biggest issue I see, which is spending absolutely all of your time on the project and not practicing how to talk about the project, how to do the presentation. Like I said, even though it's the project could be, present to us a PowerPoint about blah, blah, blah. I will watch people spend all this time on this PowerPoint and a handout and things like that. And then they get up there to present and they're just reading off their slides. It's like, that's not what we asked for, right? Like, we wanted to see how you present. How did you come to the conclusions you came to? Why did you choose the things you did? Be ready to talk about those things and practice that at home, because that is something we think is easy and it's not. We do not talk about our thought processes a lot. And so you want to make sure you're taking the time to articulate why you did what you did, why you chose what you chose, because they're going to have you show them their project and then possibly ask you about it. Now, I know some of you do like coding tests online. That's your project. You send it and that's it. I understand, but I'm saying for those that you're going to have to come back after and show your work, you want to be able to talk about why you did what you did. Okay, this last tip I fully recognize is going to sound the opposite of what I said earlier, but do more than the bare minimum. While I don't want you to throw absolutely everything at the wall, do try to think creatively. Be excited of the creativity of getting to do a project and think, is there a small way I can go above and beyond? Can I take this one campaign and show how it would carry through for the next year? Not going to the same level on each quarter, but an example of, hey, here's how I would follow it through. Or can I make the presentation stand out by adding their branding to it? So for example, when I interviewed for a certain job, I had to do a presentation. And so I Googled like the company name and slide deck or PowerPoint, and I found their branded slides for that institution and created my PowerPoint on their slide deck. And you best believe when I got in the room and popped up my PowerPoint, they were like, I watched people in the room go, did you see what she did? Like, they noticed, and it was just such a little thing. It took a minute of Googling for me to look like I really went above and beyond in that interview. So it can be something small, but just try to take whatever it is they're asking and go slightly next level in terms of creativity or excellence of your work, not trying to throw everything you know at the task. Those are two different things. Another example of this is one of my absolute favorites, was somebody had to come in and do branding for a STEM program. They made part of the branding a tree, and like there's a stem on a tree, right? Or a plant, right? And so they added seed packets in our materials that they gave for each of us, was a little branded seed packet. That just shows some extra creativity. It took a little bit of time, but I don't think it took, 3 hours extra to do that. But it was something that just went a little bit above and beyond and made them stand out. And people were really wowed by it. We still talk about it. So little things like that can help you just give it a little oomph, a little zhuzh, if you will. And that's going to be really helpful. So for more tips on interview projects, like I said, I have a whole other video. I would go check that out. I will put it down below, and it'll be over here at the end, one of these two boxes. But if you also need more help with interviews in general, I have my whole interview confidence course. You can check that out down below. It is the exact system I use when I am preparing for any interview, so that I can walk in confident knowing I am giving my best. And I want that for you too. And I believe you can get it with this course. So go check it out. That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.